Welcome back to Live from the Heartland. We've got our third guests are Floyd Webb and Rhonda Ezell. Ezell. Rhonda, you're co-founder of Chicago Guns Matter?
Yes.
What is Chicago Guns Matter, for starters? And then when Floyd gets in here, we'll do the whole hookup together. But let's start with your organization that you co-founded.
Chicago Guns Matter is an organization made up of like-minded individuals in and around the city of Chicago. And what we want to do is educate the urban community on their fundamental constitutional rights.
Mm-hmm.
Such as?
And, yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know that they have a right to have a firearm in their home. They don't know that they have a right to carry a firearm on their person. So what we want to do there is make sure that we're able to put the faces to the cases so that they're aware of the individuals who have fought for their rights and are possibly still fighting for their rights.
So you recently won a court case to try to get gun ranges in the city of Chicago. Can you tell us about how that case came about and your role in it?
Yes, I did. That case came about post McDonald. There was a Otis McDonald who had sued for the right to have a firearm in the home. And as I was complying with that new law, I found myself traveling outside of city limits to do so. And Ezell versus Chicago was born.
Floyd, one of the reasons that we got you on the show is that you're a filmmaker and you've been around for a while. You've been on this show before, but you are working on a film that is about gun possession in the black community. Mm-hmm. And those of us who've been involved in the movement for a long time, long before there was this rash of gun violence by younger people in our neighborhoods, there were the issue of blacks arming for self-defense, whether it be the Black Panthers or Robert Williams, mm-hmm. who in North Carolina, talked about Negroes with guns. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the issue and the film that you're making.
Well, the film is really
welcome.
about...
And welcome to you.
Thank you, thank you. But knowing Mike, oh my God, since I was 14. That's a whole other story.
I ain't dead.
And he's not that young.
I'm not that young either, right?
Yeah. It was Lauren Deutsch who hooked me up with you.
No, it wasn't.
Go ahead, tell us about the
Rise
film.
It Up anyway. The film is really about the black gun tradition, right? There's a black arms tradition that extends way back before the end of slavery. It goes back to the very first black people who got here to this country, right? We have a tradition of resistance, for one. Okay, we never talk about the tradition of resistance. We talk about the tradition of captivity. And so this is the way that I was taught this living. I was born in Mississippi in the 1950s, right?
In Tanya's town. Clarksville.
In Clarksville, Mississippi, right? But I lived in the countryside. I lived off of Highway 61, 2 miles off Highway 61, in a small town called Jonestown. My grandfather lived in Sardis. And guns were everywhere, When I lived with my grandfather, we had 2 automatic shotguns by the door with a stack of shells taller than I was at the time, because these were hazardous times, kind of like now. But, and so I never really considered the issue because it's such a normal thing to me, you know what I mean? It's like part of my upbringing. Mm. Guns were part of my upbringing, but nobody in my family had ever been shot outside of war or something, you know what I mean?
Is that because they had shotguns and piles of shells next to the door?
Well,
seriously.
Security. See, part of this thing that we keep missing is that black people in this country had to be armed because the state failed to offer that kind of security.
Yeah.
Right, and they still fail in a whole lot of ways because the police are not obligated they're not obligated to protect you. And usually when they come to protect you, you know what I mean? It's like you're like caught between a rock and a hard place, right? So
it's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah. So it's between. So it's like this thing about guns historically. Okay, we got 2 phases. We got to look at the historical arms tradition. Then we got to look at the economic realities that have brought about the kind of gun violence that we're seeing now. Okay. Then the other thing is like, see, I don't talk about common sense gun laws. Good sense. Common sense is just common. It's just, you know, I take Gramsci's view of what common sense.
Ramsky.
Oops. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. No,
Sorry,
that's good.
I'm exposing
Antonio,
myself.
well, yeah, please expose
Some kind of anarchist.
Okay, you know, yeah, some people can't
So
even
what does
spell it.
Gramsci say?
So, I mean, well...
He doesn't want no common sense either.
No. Well, common sense is just common. It isn't good sense. It doesn't necessarily... It just means that, you know, the common good is usually the common good of the wealthy or of the ruling classes, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with the good sense that it is for humanity, you know? And it, like, even Reagan in the end, you know, went for some good sense gun control, you know, good sense gun laws. That's why he signed on to the Brady bill, you know. So this
Do you
film
think it had anything to do with him getting shot?
well after he wasn't president, and it wasn't politically expedient for him to take those crazy positions. His wife got him to sign on to the Brady
okay.
bill. You know?
I
But
like
see, this is the kind of history that I want to cover in this film,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The fact that, like, gun possession in the black community is not an uncommon thing, and it's not a bad thing, right? It's a bad economy, there's the lack of schooling, closing all the schools, no education, no opportunities, right? So that all you have is a narcotics culture, or you have a narco economy in black communities that is fueled by gun violence. You know?
I like the distinction you made between paying attention to the repression, the slavery, and the resistance. So talk a little bit about that resistance. Does it start with Nat Turner?
No, no, way long before.
Okay,
we're talking,
but Nat Turner stood out.
We're talking about the Organization of Free Africans at the founding of this country, about the same time of the founding of the Continental Congress, right? We're talking about those first escaped captives who went off and joined the Native Americans, right? Eventually getting with the Seminole, you know.
Speaking
Billy
of the Native
Bowlegs,
Americans, there's a tribe in North Carolina called the Lumbee, and they're pretty much you know, a mixed group of, you know, Native American whites and blacks. And there was this, like 1958, the Klan had a rally, about 100 Klan members having a rally. They were surrounded by 1,000 of these Lumbee Indians.
Yeah, and you know who you know who did it first? Robert Williams.
That's what I want to get to. Tell people who Robert Williams is.
Robert Williams was a Korean War vet who came home from the war and got made and was made the head of the NAACP. Now
in North Carolina or nationally?
North Carolina. Of the North Carolina NAACP. Now he only got that job because Ku Klux Klan put a hit out on the head of the of the NAACP. So that guy quit and gave it to Robert Williams. This is true.
Here, have a threat.
And he wrote a book, Negroes with Guns.
And wait. This is reported. Then so Robert Williams did something that the NAACP didn't do, because at that point when I was growing up, we called the NAACP the National Association for the Advancement of Certain People. So if you weren't in their class, if you weren't a school teacher or like a banker or, you know, if you weren't in the Negro class, you couldn't like be a common laborer or field worker and be part of the NAACP. Robert Williams changed that. He went and got people because the Ku Klux Klan had been rolling through the neighborhood, and he said, "We putting an end to this stuff." And so he armed his chapter of the NAACP. They formed a gun club. They were members of the NRA. Just like I was when I was a Boy Scout, you know, everybody was a member of the NRA, and they claimed the Second Amendment rights, even though the Second Amendment was essentially created to put down slave rebellions.
Right.
Okay, that's the reason that's where the Second Amendment comes from. So anyway, yeah, but the film covers all of that. It covers Rhonda's case, a few other people's cases, you know, to kind of like give us a good look at what this issue really covers, and not so much hysteria. You know?
Rhonda, what's your sense of this film and your role in it?
My sense with the film is that we're trying to educate people about the black community, the urban community, and firearms. You know, the educating of the people in the use of firearms and safety and training and things of that nature, and the history as well.
So I get the history
Mhm.
and Second Amendment rights,
Mhm.
and I applaud your victory in getting safe places to practice in the city. What I don't get is how conceal and carry is going to prevent a sidewalk attack in our defenseless communities with random acts of violence going on, which also seems to be part of the argument here. We're unarmed, so therefore we're going to be victimized. So can you explain to our listeners why conceal and carry makes me safer to some random attack in the street? Can you give me an example of someone who averted an instance of shooting on the street because they had a gun with them?
Well, what concealed carry does is it allows you the opportunity to protect yourself. Concealed carry doesn't state that you're going to be able to prevent every crime that occurs. But what it does do, it gives you an opportunity to save your own life in any event that you may come upon an individual that's trying to harm you or your loved ones. Concealed carry doesn't hold this umbrella that you're 100% safe. It's just a part of the law. If you want to indulge in it, you get training, you get education, you get a license, and then you carry your firearm concealed. That way, if you see a threat, if you had the proper training, you should be able to identify that problem before it occurs.
Yeah. The other thing is concealed carry is not new. It's just legal now. When I was growing up, a lot of people concealed carry, right? We did a story for Night Moves magazine in 1987. We stood on the bottom of 55th Street and asked people about their position on like guns. The number of people who had guns, including nurses, people on the way to and from work, shocked me. I said, I didn't realize this was many guns on the street. And this was before concealed carry was what people have always, they just didn't talk about it, you know? So this has made it legal. The other thing about anecdotes, I got plenty of anecdotes in my early life where we were able to get out of a situation because somebody was armed.
You know, Floyd, I wanted to be able to ask you about your other film you're working on, Count Dante, who was a white guy who brought martial arts to the black community here in the 50s, but we're going to have to save that.
Yeah, we'll save it.
Can you give us your website where people can find out more about this film?
Luke2236.com. That's Luke2236.com from the Bible verse. Let he who hath no sword sell his cloak and buy one.
We've got different interpretations of that, but we've just scratched the surface because I have so many questions about how we talk to other people about guns in Chicago when they seem to be the source of so much misery.
It's so much misery, but the misery starts with the economy. The misery starts.
No disagreement
you know
there.
I mean? So all of this misery.
There's a gun that makes it final.
Yeah, but if that person had something to do, if they had a job, if they had a hope of going someplace else, they'd never have the gun in the first place.
Maybe so.
We keep dealing with the disease and not the symptoms.
Yeah,
we're dealing with the symptoms, and this is not there's no cure, right? There's a prevention, right?
Right.
So I mean, so it's like they have us emotional.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Rhonda wanted to say something. We're winding down. It's the last 30 seconds, and I'm sorry we always do this. Yeah. Thank you to Amaya Pawar, Mary Circle, Sophia Sami, Floyd Webb. Look at
she
this.
called you a weeb, huh?
I read what it said. Rhonda, Ezell. Really, really good to have you all. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do.
All power to the people.
And we're